All right. So now after listening to how to build a future-ready AppSec program, we have another one which talks about how to build a high-impact AppSec program. And for this, we have two experts in this matter. I'll be the moderator. And then the two experts that I'm talking about are Gusti Benawi, Manager of Application Security at 𝗕𝗏𝗄𝗏, and jackie-mak, who is Manager, Advisory of Cybersecurity Services at KPMG US. And this particular subject is very close to my heart as well. This is an area that I believe provides a lot of insights on how two individuals or two organizations have built a successful and a high-impact AppSec program. Hopefully, it will serve as a case study and give some insights on some best practices that you could adopt in your organization as well. So let's go in and have a conversation with Gusti and jackie-mak. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this session, Building Blocks of a High-Impact AppSec Program. My name is LingRaj Patil, go by Raj Patil as well. I am Executive Chair of the Purple Book community and also VP of Marketing at Armor Code. And joining me today are two AppSec experts, Gusti Benawi, who is Manager of Application Security at 𝗕𝗏𝗄𝗏, and then we have jackie-mak, who is Manager of Cybersecurity Services at KPMG. So Gusti, Jackie, welcome. Would you like to take a minute to introduce yourself, please?
Yeah.
Gusti?
Yes, for sure. Thank you, Raj, so much for having us today. My name is Gusti Benawi. So I am running the AppSec program with 𝗕𝗏𝗄𝗏, with all the 𝗕𝗏𝗄𝗏 subsidiary like Snapfish, LifeTouch, Foro Lenses, Spoonflower. I've been with the company for a little more than 3 years now. But prior to that, my background is more in developer background. So I've been in developer industry for, I think, a little bit more than 15 years before joined the security industry. I think as of today, I've been in security industry for a little bit more than 5 years.
Yes, all right, welcome. Thank you. Jackie?
Sure. Thank you, Raj, and thank you for having us. My name is jackie-mak. I'm a manager with KPMG Cybersecurity Consulting Practice, and I help lead our application security and DevSecOps services in the US. So I support clients from a variety of different industries and help them navigate complex, software security problems so that they can protect the most valuable assets. Much of my time revolves around answering the question we're talking about today, which is how do you build robust application security programs with teams? So excited to be a part of the conversation.
All right, perfect. We have the right backgrounds here to throw light on this subject. So Jackie, I'll ask you the first question. So how do you define a high-impact AppSec program?
Sure. So to me, a high-impact application security program is really in the service of the whole organization. It's providing value and enabling the developers, the ones that are out there producing and helping to create those products that are, client-facing. And so that means things like enabling faster releases, ensuring that there's less vulnerabilities, and increasing, revenue that we're able to generate for the organization. That's security's job to make sure that, we enable them to do their jobs better and faster. Additionally, it's also our job to ensure that we provide the security and longevity to the products, to the organization. That includes things like brand protection. If there are regulatory compliance issues, making sure that we are compliant with what we need to be. And so the overall goal of the application security program is going to be to identify, mitigate, and prevent those vulnerabilities within the software lifecycle. But all that's in service of, helping those developers out, helping to drive that value of the organization.
All right, excellent. Thank you. I just love that you started off with the business goals. So very important because when you connect an AppSec program to the business goal is when you start unlocking the budget that's needed for setting up a high impact business program, right? So Gusti, this question is for you. So what do you think are the building blocks of a successful AppSec program?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I would like to kind of step back a little bit to what Jackie just said earlier about what AppSec goals are. which is to identify issues, to prevent and to mitigate the problem. So I think that aligns to what we are trying to do here by looking at the building blocks, which is if you are looking at the identifications, so we need that kind of certain tooling technology to be able to detect what is our main issues here, right? And once we know what the issues are, we can move to the second goal, which is to mitigate the issues. And that is what we need to have right people to be able to mitigate the problem there. So whether it is development or engineering or even manager, the people who can direct us on the prioritizations. That's the second building block. And then once we want to prevent the similar problem from happening again after we mitigate these issues, this is kind of both of the combinations of the tooling and the depth that we have. So we need a process to make sure that those items that we resolve not happening again. So the process might be going from let's say risk-based analysis and trying to address issues that are the most important for us first. Let's say whether it is a starting from external services first, and then going down to internal services. So I would say, to summarize this, the building blocks would be the people, the process, and the technologies that we need in order to solve the AppSec goals that we talk about.
All right. Yeah. Excellent. Thank you so much. That makes so much sense. So in terms of, now we talk about the building blocks, right? So what would you say are the challenges to actually reaching the goals of a high impact AppSec program? So Jackie, this question is for you.
Sure. Thank you, Raj. So when we start off the build out, we always have this, vision, this ideal state that we have for where we want our program to be. But the reality of what happens is not always going to meet that expectation. So there may be limits to your budget that you get. There may be other obstacles. And so, as we talk through that, a couple of ones that come to mind for me are, firstly, unrealistic expectations. There's often a mindset that, hey, this automated tool is going to inherently make us more secure. But that's not always the case. A lot of teams I've worked with, they have the right tools in place, and the issue is that they're still struggling with them. So, what they thought they were going to get out of the tool was different than what they received. And once it came to handling the output of the tools, they weren't really completely, prepared to resolve them and resolve those issues that they had. So, for example, if you've got a manual penetration test, the final report might include 20 findings with in-depth explanations of what the finding is, the issue, and potential remediation. But when you run an untuned SAS scanner, you might get 1,000 findings, and suddenly it's someone's job to deal with that. So that first, reality is just unrealistic expectations. Secondly, I'd say it's a lack of integrated processes. This is one of the key steps in building that program, is having solid processes for your program. And sometimes it's not always there. Even at the largest organizations, they might have well-defined development processes where they're working agile, they've got sprints, they're using Jira, and they've got tickets, but somehow they haven't really planned security tooling to fit into this. Where do the security reports live? What sorts of processes and activities are required? They just don't have that in place. So as we all know, there aren't enough security people in the world to deal with these tools and their outputs. So how do we scale that? And many times as security people, we go out to development teams and we say, hey, we bought all these tools, and developer, you have to run them. This is the way you have to do it. And yes, there's 100 findings, there's 1,000 findings that came out of it, but that's not our problem as security. So we don't always think developer first. We think security people first. So those are some of the challenges that I think of.
All right. Yeah, excellent point here. So I like how you keep putting developers in focus, because ultimately developer productivity is an important part of it, and you need to enable them because security at the end of the day can find the problems, highlight the problems, but they ultimately need to be fixed by the developers, right? The developer experience becomes very important. And then how you basically set up the people, process, and technology to overcome the challenges that you have. So Gusti, would you like to add to this?
Yes, indeed. I think I'm totally in alignment with what Jackie said. Developers are indeed the most powerful tool within AppSec. because developers are the only people in the organizations that are addressing or fixing security vulnerabilities. Without them, our security vulnerabilities will not get resolved automatically. So when it comes to AppSec, we need to also think about how we need to kind of marry together all our AppSec tools with the tools that developers use in their day-to-day basis. When we think about AppSec, we typically think about tools that we use, like SAS, DAS, SCA. There might be other tools too, to like say scanning your mobile apps and tons of other tools. In reality, tools are pretty easy to implement. There are tons of tools out there, open source or commercial tools that you can use. The biggest challenge, in our opinion, here is how do we combine all those together so that developers know that there is issue here and there, and tools without having to run through all those 100+ tools that we introduce to them. Because at the end of the day, developers tend to use or to work with the tools that they are already familiar with, such as Jira, or any tools that is part of their development tool. So when it comes to managing AppSec in a good way, we need to think how we can govern or manage all the tools that we provide into a good way, so that it's also easy for the developers to consume. And this is one of the most important part in AppSec, and people tends to ignore. People always tend to kind of go through the real scanning tools only, but the management and governance layer is also very important. This is where we can also we can use to combine all the results from all various tools together into one single pane of glass. From there, we can create our automations to, let's say, deduct the results, remove all the duplicates, and also add additional automations that can pass the results into the developers' day-to-day tools like Jira. Without that, and I have seen in my past experience that so many great tools fail in a company that we have to drop the tools again because we don't see any usage, even though the tools is giving us great results. But the problem is there is no visibility. You have a lot of scans results, but the problem is, who is going to fix that? If we don't have a good way to pass these informations down to developers, nothing is going to get done. So that's why, in my opinion, management and governance layer tools like Armor Code can provide is very valuable, because it's not only provide the visibility for the developers, also it provides a lot of automations that can be done to save a lot of time.
All right, thank you. Yeah, so you shared a lot of great insights there that I'd like to unpack a little bit more. So you talked about that there are multiple tools that AppSec teams use, right? SAS, DAS, pen testing, and they generate a lot of vulnerabilities, right? And there are duplicates among them. Sometimes they're related, and sometimes not all of them are at the same priority. And it's very difficult for even AppSec engineers to go through maybe 5 to 6 different tool sets, however many they have, and come up with one place where you can actually tell developers, you know what, developers, forget about this 1,000 that you were looking earlier. Look at these 50. These are the most critical problems that you need to fix before you ship it, right? So that's kind of a challenge without management or governance layer that you're talking about. Did I get that right?
Yes, perfect.
Yeah. So now tying back to what Jackie was saying earlier in terms of building a high impact AppSec program, you're talking about one, the developer experience has now improved, because now instead of giving them 1,000 problems and asking them to solve or go take a look at these 5 different tools to find out which ones to fix, you are now saying there's one place, these 50 problems, these are the ones that you need to fix. So now not only has that experience become better, but it also has met the other business goal of releasing software faster, right? Now they know where to focus their energies on, right?
Yeah, that is, sorry. So that is actually even better with tools like this. in ideal case, developers don't even have to go through that management portal. They can just stick around with their tool that they are using, Jira, because all the information have been passed to them already. So in Jira, they will be able to see what's the problem, what's the priority, and how to fix that. If they need more information, they still can go to that management, but I would say that 90% and 95% they don't have to do that. That management tool is still good though for security, CISO or CTO, even CTO, to be able to get a high level of the security posture across the organizations, and then they can plan whether, say, hey, which let's say which item should we invest more, whether it is training on specific items, whether it is adding more resources on specific teams because they are lacking capacity to resolve issues on a timely manner. That visibility provides a very great value here.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point that you make, especially the developer productivity is so important. We look at, as a rule of thumb, right, we have seen that for every AppSec engineer, there are about 100 developers. Of course, in some companies, there are even more developers than that. And now we are talking about how to make the developer experience in such a way that even if they, instead of spending, let's say, 4 hours resolving these issues in a week, maybe if they're spending 2 hours resolving these issues, those 2 hours that you save per developer, for 100 developers, now we are talking about 200 hour savings, right? And now if it's 1,000 developer organizations, the benefits just compound from there, and then tying back to the business value that you're talking about. So maybe this is how, so Jackie, is this what you meant about taking the business impact that an AppSec program has and tying it back to how it impact the business and then unlock the budgets that are required? Because these days budgets are a big constraint, right?
Exactly. You're exactly right, Raj. As I mentioned earlier, the developers are the key to all of this. If we can enable them to do their jobs faster, they can provide more value to the business. And that unlocks that budget we're talking about. That's one of the primary constraints for a lot of organizations out there today. They don't have the budget, and security teams aren't able to do as much as they want to. But if they're able to, automate and get the job done faster, that then in turn enables the business, the developers, to go out and provide more value to the organization. And it's really our job there to ensure that we can do that. We need to increase the developer understanding. A lot of times when it comes to talking to developers about security, it's usually, here's how you write secure code, or here's the OS top 10, but there really isn't much time fleshing out the actual process of AppSec. How are we helping them? A common challenge is that security teams come up with a standard, and the application development teams, not being security professionals, they don't really know what it means. They don't understand, how to implement it. They get that it's best practice, but they don't know where to go from there. And so we have to be able to enable these developers to be successful. We need to make sure that we're able to build those relationships and really develop them from there. And if they've had a bad experience, like you mentioned with tooling, if they get 1,000 findings from an untuned SaaS tool, we know that we're going to lose them. Once you lose a developer on tooling, they're not coming back. And so those tools can sometimes be security for them. Sometimes their whole job becomes getting that backlog down of 1,000, 2,000 findings. And that's when it becomes a grind for them to become security. So we need to be the face of that. We need to get in front of that. We need to make sure that, the developers, while they'll never be happy about working on security issues, that, we're able to free up time for them. The more that we can automate the process, the more that we can get them, more time back to work on things we want to be working on, the more interested we'll get them in this process, the more buy-in we'll get. Ultimately, you can't make these findings more exciting, but you can make this process easier.
Right. Yeah, that's fantastic. I love that you put developer experience and consequently the business impact so central to the discussion here. So Gusti also talked about it's not just important that we go from 1,000 findings to, let's say, 50. We also talked about removing the friction in developers' life when they have to use the tooling, right? Like staying in the same Jira system, for example, what they're comfortable with. Can you tell me a little bit about how it was before and after? What would a bad practice look like? What would a good practice look like from a developer's point of view?
Yeah, I think as I said earlier, there are good and bad practices here. The main difference here is being how you can try to combine AppSec tooling with developers toolings together. If there are too many fractions, like say developers needs to go to see every single tool to look at the findings there, and every vendor, I think a lot of vendors are trying to be one-stop building or one-stop solutions today, providing a lot of solutions as CA does, but I'm not seeing any single vendor that is able to do that today. Most of the time, we will have many various vendors on different solutions. That means that there is totally different look and feel, different UI. So developers will need to understand how to use the tool. That just introduce new frictions. Not to mention that new hire that will have to train about how to use the tool again. So the ideal situation is to, as much as possible, to kind of let the developer know, hey, there is no new tool pretty much. So everything is still on your screen. If you are using Jira, keep using Jira. If you are using Jenkins for your CI/CD automation, still Jenkins there. That management and governance layer that I mentioned earlier will be also be tied into the CI/CD to, let's say, if you want to down the road to block as a security gate to as a go no go decisions to allow productions. But other than that, I think that is the key takeaway on how to build an AppSec program. We need to think like developers, and I couldn't agree more with Jackie. Like, developers are still our best friends here, quote unquote. So we still need to get a good relationship with them. I mean, people are talking about how generative AI will be able to replace developers, but that's not even close. From my experience, I don't see any soon that generative AI will be able to replace developers. So if there is any developers here and listening, so don't be afraid. Your job is safe.
Yeah. Thank you. I love the conversation here, how you took from the business goal to tying it to the people who make it happen, people, process, technology within the people, talked about the developer experience, and you are there to enable that, and how to take confusion out of looking at 10 different things and bring it down to maybe one management layer through which this whole ecosystem plugs into, and that leads to all the business outcomes that we talked about, right? Faster resolution and faster resolution, reduction in the number of vulnerabilities, fixing the right problems, right? I just love the conversation here. Would you like to say something maybe for a minute or so to wrap up this discussion, Jackie and Gusti?
Sure. Yeah. I'll kind of close out and give some of my key takeaways. To second what Gusti was saying, we as AppSec need to build those security relationships. Different people have to be involved to solve different problems. DevOps teams will have to be involved to identify how we implement tools in the automation process. Developers will need to be involved in the analysis of findings, since they're the ones that know it the best. We want to make sure that the right people are engaged in the right topics. A big part of building processes better is understanding who's going to do this part or that part. And so AppSec teams, to build its program, you need to have a way to broker that security, which can mean having a security liaison. It can mean having a security champions program, but you need to have a face that application teams can talk to, a person that they can reach out and be vulnerable with, and one that they can build a collaborative culture with. So definitely building that relationship is really important. And secondly, continuously and always improve your processes. It's not a one-stop shop and a finite goal. What worked yesterday may not work today. So, if you don't have an efficient way of dealing with findings, and just keep moving forward, otherwise you're going to wreck developer morale. So always keep improving your processes.
All right. Thank you, Jackie. Gusti, how about you?
No, I think Jackie just nailed everything. I couldn't agree more than that. Good job, Jackie.
All right. Thank you so much, Jackie and Gusti. It's a pleasure talking to you. I'm sure we can go about it for another half an hour or 1 hour at this subject, but appreciate you taking your time to join and share your insights.
Sure.
All right. So this is the end of it. You got some insights on how to build a high-impact AppSec program. If you have any questions, you know who they are. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.